Welcome to the Love Your People Well podcast, where we help women grow godly relationships, grateful hearts, and grace-filled lives. I'm Jess, and I'm a marriage and family therapist, a Christian, a wife, a mom, and I believe that God creates us for relationships, relationship with Him and with each other. So if you're looking to love God well, to love yourself, your family, and those around you well, you're in the right place. Stick around, friend, and let's get started. Hello, hello. You are here for the very first episode of the Love Your People Well podcast, and I am so excited that you're here to start this journey with us. My name is Jess, and I am the founder of Love Your People Well LLC, and I am also the host of this podcast. And I am really looking forward to opening the box a little bit with you today to talk about what is this podcast, why am I starting this podcast, who is this podcast for, what is this all about, to try to put us on the same page, right? To find out, is this a podcast? Is this providing information and encouragement and help that will bless you and your family and your people? And to give you a little taste of where we're going. What direction are we heading in? Where are we at today? And where do we hope to be as a result of this podcast and the conversations that we'll be having over time? And I know that with the launch of something new like this, there's probably like 3 people listening on the day of launch. So hi, Mom. Hi, mother-in-law. I know that my people might check in, but I'm excited to see what God is going to do with this and the additional women that He's going to bring into this audience, into this community, so that we can grow together, so that we can link arms and move forward and figure out in the real, messy, chaotic, frustrating, just real life of family and home and stress and work and busyness. How do we do it? How do we love our people well? How do we love God? How do we love ourselves? How do we love our family? How do we love our friends, our church, our neighbors, all the people around us? So let me start by kind of opening the door into my thinking about the atmosphere of this podcast, because I played the trailer the other day for my husband. He helps me with kind of some of the editing. I'm still learning software and technology part of things. And so I played him the trailer, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's nice. It kind of sounds like you're leaving a voicemail for a friend. That's cool." And I thought, well, yeah, I want this to be just, 2 girlfriends sitting down, talking together. Maybe not a voicemail per se. They don't tend to be very long or detailed, at least in my world. But I absolutely envision the atmosphere of this podcast being you and me just sitting down together on the couch, end of the day, kids are in bed, we've got our slippers on, we've got a nice comfy blanket, and we're just catching up on life, sharing about what God is doing, sharing our concerns and our worries, praying for each other, and offering each other encouragement and ideas and help so that we can move forward together, not in isolation, but building each other up and equipping each other as the Lord calls us to do. That is what I'm envisioning here. Now, I don't know about you, like when I'm sitting on the couch at the end of a long day, I really love just like grab a hot beverage, right? Something about like wrapping your hands around the warm mug and the steam is just coming up. You can smell the hot cocoa or the tea or the coffee, whatever it is. It's so comforting. I've had coworkers tease me in the past because I would drink hot tea in the middle of the day, in the middle of the summer, because it's like, I need a little bit of comfort. I need a little bit of peace in this moment. And that little hot beverage in my favorite mug, peppermint tea, like, yes, that just brings me the peace. And so I don't know what you're sitting down with. Enjoy that coffee, enjoy that cup of wine, whatever it is. But I'm sitting here with my peppermint tea and my slippers on, and I'm just excited to open life with you, to walk the journey of loving our people well. I'm here not just to offer ideas and offer encouragement, but to share my story, the ways that God has grown me and challenged me and taught me how to love my people well. Because I know that he does those things not only to bless me as an individual, but to bless the people around me, through the testimony that he's writing in my life. And so I'm excited to see how my story will also be a part of this journey, encouraging and equipping and helping you. So we've got that atmosphere in mind, right? I know in real life, when we listen to podcasts, I'm folding laundry or I'm washing dishes or I'm doing something because I'm a mom and we're busy and I don't have time to just sit around listening to podcasts while I close my eyes and enjoy my peppermint tea at the end of the day. Maybe that's what you're doing, and that is awesome. I'm excited for you. But if in real life you have to be folding laundry while you're listening in, that's totally fine. Obviously, I get that. And in real life, we are multitasking. And sometimes that's part of the struggle with loving our people well while there's 1,000 things we're trying to do in the next 10 minutes. But that is real life. And so that's fine. Tune in wherever you are at. But keep that atmosphere in mind, right? We're just sitting down together, we're talking, and we're sharing life. So let me open the door a little bit into why I'm starting the Love Your People Well podcast. Because there are already dozens, probably hundreds of podcasts out there about marriage, about motherhood, about faith and spiritual growth. But the reason that this podcast has been heavy on my heart for a while and why I think the Lord is leading me in this direction is because I have over 10 years of experience as a marriage and family therapist and a professional counselor. And through that time in the counseling room, I have seen a lot of common themes pop up. And I have also seen that God, when He shows up, when He is at work, when we invite Him into the process and we seek His wisdom and we allow ourselves to be filled with His grace and His Spirit, that is when amazing things happen. And I will tell you, it is a humbling and a powerful experience to sit in the room and to see God work through the conversation that I'm having with a client. And so with all of that experience, when you start to see those themes pop up, I think we all wonder, okay, how do we help the people who aren't coming into the counseling room for this issue? Because they probably are feeling alone. They're thinking, wow, I'm struggling in this way and I'm just supposed to buckle down and get through it, or I'm the only one dealing with this issue. And that is never the case. I have never seen that to be the case. And so I started thinking, for a long time about how can I use this knowledge, this experience, this wisdom that the Lord has given me and use that to bless more people. And, as timing would have it in the Lord's will, I'm having this kind of conversation with myself and with God about how can this knowledge bless people who aren't coming in, who I'm not sitting down with face to face in a counseling relationship. And that wound up coinciding with me actually stepping away from the counseling room. I'm still a licensed counselor in the state, but right now I'm at home with my kids, with my triplets, actually. They're not even quite 2 years old. So as you can imagine, life is busy. And getting out the door for a scheduled appointment to sit down with a client and really be present with them and really walk through their journey and their issues in the way that I know is needed, that's just not the season that my life is in right now. And so here I am thinking, okay, how do I help more people while I'm also helping less people? That's been an interesting dialogue with the Lord. But come technology. I don't actually spend a ton of time on social media. I certainly can, and I get sucked in. And so that, I've had to set some boundaries around that over time. But as I've been home with my kids, I have been listening to a lot more podcasts because you can just hit play. And like I said before, I'm folding the laundry, I'm washing the dishes, I'm cleaning up the spilled milk, which I think my count yesterday was four big spills of milk. Hey, that's not too bad. While I'm doing all of that, and my kids are still, they're little enough, and there's 3 of them, they can play happily on their own for a little bit. They don't need mommy entertaining them all the time. But I'm not really in a position to leave them alone. They need some supervision, they need help. And so podcasts have been such a blessing during this season. And as the Lord always does, he began to put these pieces together for me. I've got this experience in the counseling room. I've got a lot of training and research and knowledge built up about how to help women and couples and families who are struggling with some really common themes. And I will talk about what I see those as, what those common themes are. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I've got all that knowledge, I've got that background. I want to help more people who are definitely dealing with the same themes, the same issues. Yet here I am in a season where I'm at home and I'm not face to face counseling in the same way. And I've kind of been introduced to the possibilities of this technology, the possibilities of a digital ministry. Because in the counseling world, even if you're doing, telecounseling, you're maybe not sitting down face to face, but you're on the phone or you're on the computer, it still has to be a scheduled thing, right? Nobody's having a counseling session at 2 a.m. You might call a crisis helpline or something like that at 2 a.m., but you're not sitting down with your regular counselor for a normal session. But you know what? You might be up at 2 a.m. with your crying kiddo who just doesn't want to fall asleep unless you're holding them and have an opportunity to pop in your headphones and listen to a podcast. And so the Lord has brought all these pieces together and launched this new ministry, the Love Your People Well podcast. And then we have resources on our website. Over time, we'll talk more about what those are. But my goal is that we can use this space to create community and to address these really common issues that so many women, so many families struggle with. And we can do it in a way that is filled with biblical encouragement as well as practical strategies that I've seen work in my own life and in the lives of so many clients over the years. And we can do that online. We can do that whenever and wherever is convenient for you. And that, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what God is going to do with this. I know that he's going to show up, and I know that if it's anything like my past experiences with him, it's probably not going to be in the way that I'm expecting. But you know what? I am open to that. And so it is my prayer and it is my plan that this podcast will be a blessing and a help to you. So let me shift into that direction, right? I said I wanted to talk also about who is this podcast for? Because the mission of Love Your People Well LLC, like the bigger picture company, not just the podcast, but also our resources, our courses, the different things that we offer, the mission is to help women strengthen their most important life relationships. And I describe that in a few ways. I think that our most important relationships fall into the category of God, loving God, first and foremost, loving ourselves in the way that he calls us to, because he loves us so passionately and so deeply, and he wants us to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually healthy. So loving ourselves, loving our family, and then also loving others, our friends, our church, our community, the people that God puts around us. Those are the different areas that I'm thinking about when I think love your people well. Who are these important relationships? And everyone's in a different place. My friendships might be great, but my relationship with my kids might really be a struggle, and in 6 months, in a year, that might shift. Over time, some relationships get stronger, some struggle, and we need to be able to kind of flow with life to address whatever the season is that we are in currently with our people. And there are, I mentioned before, there's a few themes that I have seen show up again and again in the counseling room that impacts all these different areas, right? It impacts people's relationship with God, their relationship with themselves, and with their family, and with others outside of their family. And some of those big issues come into purpose, people questioning, who am I? Why am I even in these relationships? Why should I stick around when things get tough? What is my identity? How am I supposed to live? These big questions of purpose, they impact all of us. And I think, as I said before, you don't need to be at a point of distress where you're seeking counseling to be struggling with that same question, that same kind of underlying nagging question of Who am I? What is my purpose? Do I really feel confident about my identity as a daughter of the King, the mighty, holy King? Do I really feel confident in my identity as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, as a worker? Whatever. We have so many different roles that we try to fill in our life, but what is our purpose in all of that? That is a really common theme that women struggle with. And so that's one of those kind of pain points that we're going to be addressing. That if you find yourself sometimes feeling a little bit unfulfilled in your daily life and wondering, what is this all about? I'm stuck in a rut. I'm just not really doing anything meaningful with my time or my day. This podcast is for you. We're going to dig into that and figure out how to clarify that purpose, how to clarify that identity. We're going to do that by keeping scripture, keeping the Bible as our foundation, looking at what God says about who you are, how incredibly precious and wonderful you are, looking at the certainty that He has about your purpose, about His plans for you and for your people. And one of the other big themes that I see pop up in the counseling room a lot is women feeling disconnected or feeling distant from the people who are important to them. And I think this is often where, people might come into counseling seeking help for anxiety. That's a really common one, or seeking help with grief or with depression or all sorts of different things. But whatever that issue is, that people walk in the door thinking, this is my issue, me as an individual. When we sit down together and we talk it through and we actually explore what's happening and how it's impacting them, it always comes back to the impact it's having on their relationships. That because of X issue, their anxiety or whatever it might be, they wind up feeling distant and feeling disconnected. There maybe there's conflict. That certainly is an issue. There might be a lot of conflict, a lot of arguing and fighting and just not being on the same page with your people. But sometimes it's really not that big and bold and loud. Sometimes it's a lot quieter. It's coming home at the end of the day. Everyone's there. We're in the same house. We're maybe even in the same room. Or maybe even around the same table. But we've all got our device out, and that has stolen our attention. It's stolen our eyeballs. It's stolen our mind. It's stealing our hearts. We're sitting on the couch next to each other. Our knees might even be touching. Sitting next to my husband, our knees are touching, but we've both got our laptops out. We're doing our work. We're doing our whatever, getting lost in our individual things. And so if you're feeling some distance in your marriage, you're feeling maybe disconnected from your kids. Even when we think outside the home, sometimes we're dealing with that kind of surface level friendships. I go to church every week, but I don't really know anyone. I don't really connect with anyone there. And I grab coffee once in a while. I text with my friends. We send each other these hilarious memes. It's so great. But there's not depth. There's not connection. There's not vulnerability. We feel lonely a lot of times. We might be surrounded by people, but we feel lonely. And this is a really common theme in the counseling room. And I know from my personal experience, from chatting with friends, from being on social media, on Facebook, looking at what other people are saying, I know that is not just a problem for the women who actually seek counseling. I know it's a problem for pretty much all of us at some season. We're feeling distant. We're feeling disconnected. Things feel like they're just kind of running on the surface and they're not going deeper, and we just feel stuck with how to change that. If that is a feeling that kind of resonates for you, you're in the right place. This podcast is for you. We are going to tackle not only what Scripture says about how to have a God-filled marriage and family life, how to connect with our kids and discipline our kids and teach our kids and lead our kids, how to connect with friends and with church and with neighbors. Yes, we're going to look at what Scripture says about this and try to understand better God's call for us in these different areas. But we're also going to look at some practical strategies, because people are always amazed in the counseling room. It's one-on-one, me and a woman sitting down together talking about this distance that she's struggling with in her marriage. Things aren't horrible. but they're not great either. They're not where they were when they first got married in that honeymoon period. And people are always amazed by the fact that you can work on something without your husband even knowing about it, without the other person being really involved in the process, that can still make a huge difference in the relationship. And so we will look at some of those strategies, how to build intimacy in our relationships, how to get close and connected with our kids, how to go deep with our friends, how to plug in meaningful ways in our church and in our community. We're not going to stay in this place of distance and disconnection. We're going to go deep with our people. And the third area, I mean, there's a lot of themes that pop up in counseling that I know are happening for kind of your average everyday lady out there. But the third theme that I'm particularly keeping in mind as we start this podcast is the feeling of being unfulfilled and unsatisfied. And there's a lot that goes into that. The more time we spend on social media, the more likely we are to start comparing ourselves to other people. And all of a sudden, my vacation maybe really wasn't so great because, we just went 2 hours away to a hotel. We didn't get to go on the big fancy trip to Hawaii. Or we start feeling bad about ourselves. Gosh, look at these moms that are able to do 5,000 things in a day and everybody's smiling and all their clothes are clean and they probably never spill milk on the floor. We start thinking these things when we're on social media or even just in conversation with other people, and we wind up feeling unfulfilled and unsatisfied. We start comparing ourselves with other people. And, this all links together. If we're questioning our purpose and our identity, we're probably going to feel less fulfilled in our relationships because we're not confident about the purpose in those relationships. And if we're feeling disconnected from our people and distant in our marriage, in our parenting, that's not going to be as satisfying. And so I know that all of these themes are connected. But that sense of feeling unfulfilled and unsatisfied, of not really knowing how to move past that and how to stop looking at what is happening for everybody else and to find gratitude and joy in the life that you have, the messy kitchen that God has given you, that can bring you joy. And the stress in your marriage, the frustrations with your kids, those things can be a testimony of God's grace in a way that you can be grateful for in powerful and real ways. And so if any of this is connecting with you, if you know that feeling of lacking purpose, lacking identity, wondering, who am I? Why am I here? What's this all about? Then this is a place for you. And if you have experienced those seasons of distance and disconnection, of just kind of going on the surface, stuck in a rut, things are just not great with your people, then this place is for you. This podcast is for you. And if you know what I'm talking about, if you've had those moments where you love your people, maybe things are going just fine, and you just find yourself feeling kind of unfulfilled, unsatisfied, that sense that there must be more than this, there probably is, because something is getting in the way that's interrupting your satisfaction, that's interrupting the joy that God intends for your life and your relationships. So we've opened the door a little bit, right? We've talked about, why am I starting this podcast? Who is it for? What are some of those common themes that we will be digging into over time with this podcast? And in episode 2, I'm going to open up a little bit more, share a little bit more about my story, how I have walked through seasons of questioning my purpose, seasons of feeling disconnected, feeling unfulfilled, how I've seen God show up in such incredible ways. And you know what? I know that I'm not done with that. I know that despite all of my, incredible wisdom, hear the sarcasm, in my relationships, all of my experience, all of my prayer, all of my submission to the Lord, I know there will be seasons again in the future where I'm questioning myself, or I'm feeling kind of stuck in a rut, kind of on the surface with someone that I really wish we had a deeper relationship. I know that these seasons come and go. And my goal is not that we eliminate them together in this community here through Love Your People Well, but my goal is that we do minimize them. We catch those seasons when they start so we can address it earlier and earlier. And we have practical, real life strategies that can help us turn things around more quickly. And we have the humility and the wisdom to go to God with every issue that is popping up for us, to seek His wisdom and to seek His will. And so let me close today, because in episode 2, like I said, I'm going to share more about my story and how I've walked through some of this with the Lord. But today I want to close by just outlining what this podcast is about. What are the pillars of the Love Your People Well podcast? And I've mentioned them a little bit here and there, but I want to kind of zero in so you can kind of hit those bullet points, right, as you think about what's this podcast all about. So one of our pillars is that we are here to love God well. I am a Christian. I have not been a Christian my whole life. I wasn't raised that way, but I met the Lord in college, and He has been faithful to grow me over time. And loving God is our first and most important relationship. And so we will look at that, at how do we grow spiritually with the Lord? How does that then impact us and how we live in this world for Him and in a way that pleases Him? The second pillar that we're going to look at is loving ourselves well. How do you have wellness and health in your life? How do you manage your emotions? How do you think about yourself, about other people? Is that a heart of grumbling or a heart of gratitude? And so we'll be looking at how do we love ourselves well. And then we're going to look at, I don't say then like we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, done. These will all be throughout the course of this podcast. Some of our topics they'll be kind of broad, like we can talk about communication and we're going to communicate with God differently than with our husband, differently with our toddler children. And so, some topics will kind of cover all of these, and other topics we will zero in on self-care, loving ourselves, or on intimacy in our marriage. And so that third pillar that we're going to be looking at is loving our family well. Our family inside our house, our husband, our kids, but also our extended family. How do we love our in-laws? How do we love our moms, our dads, our siblings, our cousins? And then the final pillar that we'll be looking at is how do we love others well? Our friends, our church, our neighbors, and our coworkers, our community. Because I don't believe that God wants us to just live in a little bubble. It's not just me, God, my husband, my kids, boom, we're done. Paint this big white picket fence around ourselves and everything will be perfect. God saves us and calls us and fills us to send us out. And the first place we are sent out is simply open your eyes in the morning. Those people that you see, that your family, those are your people. But beyond the walls of your house, those are your people too. And those relationships are different, but they're still incredibly powerful and important because God did not, close His eyes and point at a globe and say, okay, you're going to live on this street. Sure, it's as good as any other street. He put you in your home, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, in your church for a reason. I don't know what that reason is, but He does. And as you draw closer to Him and as you engage with your community, He's going to show you those ways that you can not only bless them, but be blessed by these kind of other people, our friends, our pastors, these different people. So those are our 4 pillars: loving God, loving ourselves, loving our family, and loving others. So I hope you've enjoyed opening the box with me, exploring a little bit about this new podcast. And I hope that you'll hit subscribe. I hope that you'll continue to check back in with us. In episode 2, I'll be sharing some of my story, how God has led me and shaped me over the years, what it has looked like on my journey of loving Him and loving myself, loving my family, and loving others. And from there, we'll dive into all sorts of different topics, which I am excited about. So thank you for tuning in today. I would encourage you to not only subscribe, but check out the website, loveyourpeoplewell.com. We've got some great resources there. We've got a free 5-day email course for the relationship reset. If your relationships, you want a little more fun, you want a little more fulfillment, you want to kind of kick things into a higher gear, that is a great and encouraging and free course that you'll find on the website. And of course, we're on social, Facebook, Instagram. Check us out, share it with your friends, and we will be back together soon in episode 2. Hugs and blessings to you, sweet friend. Talk to you soon. Jess.